All right.
It's happening?
Let me see. I'm not seeing. Yes, it's happening.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Well, of course, thank you guys so much for being here this morning. I know it's a little bit different as always, but we're so thrilled to have BONA joining us. It's a really fantastic opportunity. She is a BFA graduate from Cal Arts, has an MFA from the University of Edinburgh and Edinburgh College of Art, and is currently an assistant professor for animation at KCAI, which is fantastic. I kind of want to ask you about some of that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to hear in BONA's own words, but she has an incredible experience. She's worked on everything from music videos from Jane's Addiction to the Foo Fighters, Blink-182, commercials for Whole Foods, Ziploc, more, motion pictures like Gray Skies, Battlefield America, The Truth About Marriage, tons of television, NBC, Hulu, Cartoon Network, which of course, Robot Chicken. And really, it just, with a relatively short professional career, she has an incredible breadth of experience. Without saying too much more, I'm just excited to learn more in depth of what your career has been like, what you're currently working on. Just tell us more.
Yeah. I think most recently just finished up season 10 of Robot Chicken and season 1 of Crossing Swords, which the trailer just dropped yesterday. And so it's coming out June 13th on Hulu. And it was our first season of that. And so I finished those up over the summer before I started my first year at KCI teaching as an assistant professor. And so I've been here at KCI since September. And since then I've worked on one music video for Nick Lang and Chester Watson. And, since the pandemic, everything's kind of slowed down, but not currently working on anything, but, between teaching and animation, I usually keep busy.
Well, that's fantastic. What's it like working with Cartoon Network and Robot Chicken?
I love working on Robot Chicken. It's probably one of my favorite work environments. I love Stupid Buddy Studios. I feel like I get the best of both worlds, living in academia and in production. And so luckily the shooting schedules just kind of line up with the school year. And so Robot Chicken usually goes into production around February, March, depending on the year. And then they shoot until September. And so we usually finish school around May, June. And so that gives me the kind of like the whole summer to kind of go back and shoot. And so it's a great work environment. I love working there. And so Cartoon Network generally is pretty hands off as far as the day-to-day of the show. And so Stupid Buddy Studios, gets their notes from Cartoon Network, but then we don't deal as animators, we don't deal directly with the network ever. We never deal with like the actors, we never deal with the network. We deal with our animation director and director pretty closely though. And Seth Green, who's the producer, is pretty hands-on with it.
Wow. And I know the students have a lot of questions, so I want to ask too many more, but just in general, and I bet there's a different answer for every opportunity, but how did you get hooked up with Robot Chicken? How did you get hooked up with Jane's Addiction? Where do those opportunities what's the genesis of them?
I think part of it's luck, part of it's, who you know, and part of it's just persistence, like just kind of making yourself known and present in the industry. It took me a while. I started out on season 5 of Robot Chicken. That was my first season. And then I didn't come back until season 10. In between, I would freelance for Stupid Buddy because they also have a commercial division. So I did like commercial stuff with them. But yeah, it was really just like going to the parties, going to the bars, going up the art galleries that they were hanging out at, like really just being a presence that they were like, oh, that girl's familiar. So that when my application would come across their desk, they were like, oh, I have a face that I can put to this name. And having a little bit of social experience with these people, like definitely made it easier to kind of get in with the studio. So being present in LA, I think, was like a lot of that.
I think you're totally right. It's such a big thing we talk to them a lot about is just as part of your job as a professional is being there, being part of the communities that you want to be a part of. Like you said, going to the openings, going to the events, making your face known is just invaluable and such a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because I think anyone will tell you they would rather hire someone they know than somebody off the street. Like anyone will tell you that. And so I think that it's probably the most important part of getting into the industry is just showing up.
Any other questions, Amanda?
Hi, good morning. So looking at like your website and everything, I just wanted to know like how you kind of got started. Like we had a talk with you back in the fall,
Yeah.
and you said that the stop motion field was incredibly small. Like,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to know like how you sort of got started in it as a fabrication artist and a stop motion artist.
My first job out of college was as a Dragon operator because Dragon had pretty recently come out and nobody knew how to use it. And so my first job was actually as a Dragon operator, which probably doesn't exist anymore because I think now people are more familiar with the program. But it was a job that I had found off of like Craigslist, or like it was some dumb message board, like something that you wouldn't have expected. And like I basically have always just had like a Google alert set for stop motion jobs. And so anytime something gets posted somewhere, I get an email notification that there's a job listing. And so I would just spam everyone, every single post. I was like, hi, I'm BONA, I'm a stop motion animator, like please hire me, please hire me. And so it's really, yeah, it's a lot of persistence, just like, you know, a lot of cold calling, a lot of like just emailing studios and like producers and being like, hey, like I want to do this, and just waiting for a chance to get in.
You have a like a favorite part of the animation process, like fabrication, the actual animation,
When I'm
post-production?
done. When it's finished. Professionally, so professionally the departments don't cross over. So I'm like in when I work on a TV show or when I work on a set, I am an animator, which means I am rarely, if ever, going to also fabricate. Those are totally separate departments and they keep them very separate, especially on a show like Robot Chicken, just for organization purposes. They can't like have people wearing multiple hats like that, because the animators need to be ready to go like when they say go. And so animation's my favorite part of it. I enjoy fabrication as well, but yeah, I mean, I think I would be in the fabrication department if that were my calling though. Any other questions?
Did you have one?
Good morning. Yeah, my question, it was kind of already answered a little before, but my question is just like for like seniors like myself, like going to like graduate soon, like how would you, or like what did you do to kind of like, as soon as you graduated and left the school, like where did you go from graduating, like, oh, I want to be an animator, to actually like reaching out to studios and like slowly like acquiring jobs to get into the animation industry?
So this is, I think that's a funny question right now because of the pandemic, but I graduated during the recession. I graduated in 2011. I graduated during the 2008 recession, right? Like that lasted a couple years. And so I feel like economically I came out of a similar position that you guys are coming out of. It's going to be hard to find work. It will be, because all the studios are shutting down. I know that this year I like don't know if I'll be able to get back on Robot Chicken because the priority is not to hire an animator from outside of LA who like comes in, you know, for a couple months a year when they have like so many animators who are lined up who haven't had work in months, when I have a full-time job and I'm fine. And so I think it's a similar position that you guys are going to come out in. And my advice to you would be looking for the smaller jobs at advertising agencies, music videos, stuff like that, because that stuff I think is going to keep going because that's stuff that you can work on remotely. I know that there are studios that it's kind of a weird time to be an animator because we're facing this really digital shift where like we're realizing we could have been working from home the whole time. And so we're facing this digital shift, and a lot of studios right now are hiring for 2D animation positions, you know, assistant positions over Zoom. Like that's what they're doing. And so I know that Bento Box is, I know that Netflix is, and so you might have a weird opportunity that you might have not had the pandemic not happened, where you might be able to get a foot in the door at one of these studios with a remote job in the chance of relocating once this is over. And so I would definitely check out, I actually just spoke to Brooke Kiesling recently, who's the recruiter at Bento Box, and they have tons of job listings. They are hiring for everything right now. And so I would really recommend trying to get a foot in the door that way. If you don't do 2D animation, if you are a stop motion person and you're seeing all these 2D job listings, like don't let that throw you. There are assistant positions, there are PA positions that don't require 2D animation experience, but would still get you relevant animation experience that you could put on your resume.
Okay.
It was like great info, Bona. Thank you. And I know we have one more question from Nate.
Hi. So I wanted to ask, like, what was your inspiration when you did those music videos, like the one with the dragon and the one with like the lady over the moon?
So for the Aberdeen music video, the one with the dragon, I didn't direct that, and so so I was an animator on that, and I also did fabrication on it. And so the director came to us with a very clear idea of what's going to happen, which is usually the case. If you're an animator, you are not usually also directing, like you would be the animation director or the director if you were doing that. And usually those people don't animate. And so as an animator, it's my job to fulfill the vision of the director in most cases, right? For the Maria's video, I directed all the animation for that. And the inspiration, they gave me kind of really loose guidelines. It didn't pay super well, but there was a draw to it because they were like, but you can kind of do whatever you want. And so there's a creative trade-off, right? Where I'm like, okay, well, this is, maybe not the highest paying job in the world, but it's creatively fulfilling. And so for me, like that was worth it. And so they gave me some really loose parameters. They were like, we really like Little Prince. And I was like, okay, I can run with that. And so I, just kind of sat down, and I spent a lot of time in the storyboarding process, as I'm sure you guys do too, just kind of nailing out like what I want it to look like. But I just pulled a lot of reference from Little Prince and like other kind of twee aesthetic films, very like a lot of Wes Anderson stuff. Like I enjoy that kind of animation a lot. And so that's where that came from.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that sort of like expanded intro and professional advice. And we want to sort of roll into looking at some of the students' work. I don't know if you want to share a little bit in your studio with us before we do that, or you can dip into it as we're talking and looking at the students' work, however you want to handle it next.
I like this is my studio. It's in my basement. It's really gross right now. But I shoot down here. And I guess I can show you more as things come up.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.